Hi, everyone. This is episode 824 of People Behind the Science. I'm your host, Dr. Marie McNeely, and today we're resharing our interview with our guest, Dr. Tess Russo. Listeners, Tess is a hydrologist, which means she studies water. Her research examines how water moves, how much of it there is in the world, and how the actions of humans change how water moves in the world. She talks more about her research, her career, and herself in this episode of People Behind the Science.
Every day, discoveries are made that will change our understanding of the world around us. Dr. Marie McNeely is here to bring you the brilliant minds who are making these discoveries so they can share their incredible stories and take you on an amazing journey. Welcome to People Behind the Science.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of People Behind the Science. I am thrilled to introduce you all today to our guest, Dr. Tess Russo. So thank you, Tess, for joining us today. How are you?
I am great. How are you?
I am fantastic and excited to be chatting with you. And I'm excited to introduce you to our listeners. So listeners, Tess is an assistant professor in the Department of Geosciences at the Pennsylvania State University. She received her PhD in Earth and Planetary Sciences from the University of California, Santa Cruz, and she completed a postdoctoral fellowship at the Earth Institute at Columbia University. Now, Tess is a new faculty member just starting at Penn State this past fall, but her fantastic work is already getting quite a bit of attention. So last year, Tess was featured by the Green Sense podcast, Scientific American, and she is a guest on an upcoming episode of Startalk Radio with the wise and wonderful Neil Degrasse Tyson. So listeners, Tess is here with us today to tell us about her journey through life and science. And Tess, today we want to get to know you, both as a scientist, but also as a person. So my first question for you is, what do you like to do when you're not doing science?
That's a great question. And I have a bit of a hard time answering that because I work a lot.
Understandable.
I can say we just bought a new house, and so we're spending quite a lot of time doing like home renovations and planning. So that takes up a lot of energy. I also have, my sister lives just a few states away and has very fun children. So I like seeing my niece and nephew. And that's it. I do a lot of travel. Some of it's for fun, but most of it's for work. So I'm usually either traveling, working on the house, or actually doing science.
Gotcha. Well, it sounds like you are keeping quite busy, Tess. And I know myself, personal experience, home improvements never end.
I know.
Well, good luck with all of those renovations, and great to hear a little bit about your life outside of science, Tess. But next we are going to dive into the actual doing of science. So can you tell us how you describe what you do at work to someone who's not in science?
Sure. So I am a hydrologist, which means that I study water. And basically, I study how it moves in the world, how much of it we have, and then how actions that you and I and people and construction or agriculture, everything that we do as humans, how we're changing how water moves in the world. So I do a lot of work in areas where there's water stress, where we don't have enough water, or where we're using more water than we actually should or have access to. And yeah, that's sort of how I would sum it up, mostly with how water behaves in the world and then how we as humans are influencing it.
Well, fantastic description there, and really important research that you're doing, because water is becoming sort of a challenge in a lot of areas where it's scarce, where it's being used more than it can be replenished. And I like to start off these interviews before we dive into the details of your life and of your research, just starting with a little dose of motivation. So Tess, can you share with us today one of your favorite motivational quotes or sayings?
Oh gosh. Yeah, actually, one of my favorite quotes is by Winston Churchill. And I don't know the text exactly, but to paraphrase it, it's success is going from failure to failure without losing motivation.
I like it. Do you apply this to your life in science?
Yeah, that's like my everyday.
Well, Tess, we are going to talk about some of these failures and challenges later in the interview, but I think that is such a great quote for scientists because there are a lot of these down periods and you need something to keep yourself going, to keep that motivation, keep that enthusiasm up. So can you tell us next about some of these people who you've encountered over the course of your career and over the course of your life, who you found particularly inspiring or motivational, some of these role models you've had?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first person who comes to mind, probably because I've worked with him relatively recently, is my PhD advisor, Andy Fisher. He's at UC Santa Cruz. And he is an incredible scientist, but also a really good dad and like makes time for his, home life and isn't a crazy person, like
there are too many of them out there.
Yeah. Like, I don't know how he did it. I still don't know how he does it, but he was an excellent advisor and a top-notch scientist, and he did it all kind of really gracefully. And yeah, I think, in terms of a role model of a good scientist and a good person, he's sort of who I always think of, though he's not a famous person.
Certainly. Well, I think a lot of these people who you've been able to work closely with end up being your role models, these people that you look up to. And I really like your emphasis on really admiring the balance that he was able to achieve. And I think there are some people who just make it look easy, and I'm so jealous of them.
Yeah, I know.
I always try and glean whatever secrets I can from them. So were there any secrets that you sort of picked up, or maybe traits that you picked up from your advisor?
I mean, he's incredibly organized. And I think that's obviously a requirement to be able to make the time to do good science and to have time to do not science. And so, yeah, organization, he's very thorough, really thoughtful, really cared about his students and all of their endeavors and pursuits, and sort of selfless in a way. But yeah, I don't know. I'm so far from that right now, I feel. So it's really something I'm working on and trying to understand myself.
But you are on the path, going the right direction, Tess. I think that is fantastic to hear about these traits that you admire, and a person in particular who's had an impact on you. And I'm curious to hear about what started your career in science or your interest in science. Can you take us all the way back to the beginning, Tess, and tell us about your earliest memory of being interested in science?
Gosh, yeah. I don't know. I've always been really excited by problem solving, just by like riddles or, physical puzzles. My great uncle, my mom's uncle, worked for NASA, and he always used to bring me puzzles, 2 metal loops that you have to connect or disconnect, or several wooden blocks that fit together in a certain way, or all these sort of mechanical based puzzles, but then also like books of riddles. And those, I could just spend all day doing that.
So were you a Rubik's Cube fanatic?
I actually didn't pick up Rubik's Cube until grad school. And it's easy because you just learn the algorithm and then you do it.
Or you don't learn the algorithm and you try and peel the stickers off like I did.
That's true.
Well, Tess, wonderful to hear about your beginnings in the world of science, this fascination with problem solving and puzzles. And I think that curious nature, that wanting to solve problems, is a common feature that a lot of scientists share. So great to hear about how you started. But can you tell us next, what are some of these key moments, these big events that really took you from that problem solving child into the faculty position where you are today?
I don't know. I mean, all through grade school, I always really liked my science classes, especially physics and math in general. Like those were sort of my preferences. And then in college, I majored in mechanical engineering, which I sort of viewed as kind of like a catch-all of science and problem solving, and just kind of building a strong foundation in the fundamental sciences and basic problem solving. The thing that I take away from college is not necessarily that I learned certain subjects really well or certain topics, but that I learned that I can solve problems. I don't know. I think I'm overly optimistic in that sense. Like if someone gives me a problem, I'm like, yeah, I can figure that out.
I got this. Yeah.
And then I'll go bang my head against it for months. But, I think I have this idea that there are answers to things, or at least there are sort of optimal answers,
Certainly. Well, I really like this description of an emphasis on problem solving, kind of following you through your school years into college. And I think you're right. A lot of these sort of facts that you learn in college, they don't stay with you, but this problem solving, these skills that you're learning stay with you much more readily. So can you tell us next then, what directed you or your interest towards hydrology from this more mechanical engineering kind of background?
While I was doing mechanical engineering, I did some astrophysics research, and I had a job at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics and worked on sort of galaxy classification. And I loved it. Intellectually, it was a great job and I liked it. But I remember walking home from work one day and passing literally homeless people and thinking, what am I doing to help anybody on Earth? It was like a really stark moment for me where I kind of realized that it was important for me that my work was applied and that I could improve the situation on Earth here where, my race, my human race is trying to survive. And so I kind of moved away from astrophysics and ended up moving in the direction of more environmental science work. And within that, I wanted to focus on hydrology because I thought it was a really nice combination of physics and chemistry, and it offers the benefit of being able to combine field work with computer, modeling, and it had a lot of variety that I found appealing.
Certainly. Well, Tess, that is a pretty powerful story of sort of this turning point for you that, switched gears a little bit from this more astrophysics bent into more applied environmental kinds of research. So can you tell us now a little bit more about what you're working on right now? Tell us about one of these projects that you are maybe the most excited about working on.
Oh, gosh, I have so many, but let's see. Well, I just got back from Papua New Guinea.
I was hoping you'd talk about this trip.
Okay.
Fantastic. So tell us about what you were doing there.
Yeah, so I was teamed up with a group of human rights lawyers from Columbia University who the woman leading it, Sarah Nucky, is familiar with this area, has been working at this collection of villages that are right next to the second biggest gold mine in Papua New Guinea and one of the 10 biggest in the world. It's huge, a huge gold mine. And she'd been doing a different type of work, but while she was doing these interviews, people kept saying, water's not good, our air's not good, like just look at our environment. And she wasn't doing environmental research at the time, but came back and found me and one of my colleagues, Josh. And so we put together this project to go do an environmental assessment of the area right around this gold mine where there are about 50,000 people living and, using the stream water and the land for gardening. And they're in very close contact with the sort of effluent of the mine and the impacts that the mine has brought by, basically destroying part of the mountain. So
certainly. So have you started looking at the results of the data that you collected from this trip, or is it too early yet?
It is a little too early.
Gotcha. So, you can barely unpack now.
Yeah. We brought back a bunch of water samples and our soil samples are still in transit.
Gotcha. Well, can you tell us a little bit about what it was like to be there in this completely different environment with this gold mine around and the people that you interacted with?
It was amazing, to use a sort of generic word, but environmentally, it was beautiful. We were up on these mountains. We were at around 7,000 feet, 8,000 feet elevation. So tops of these mountains in the highlands, they were these rigid peaks and these big cliff faces. I mean, you imagine like if that were in an easier to access area, it would be like a rock climber's dream. I mean, it would be a national park without a doubt if it were in the United States. And so it was just like stunningly beautiful. And the people were incredibly generous and warm and welcoming. I think partly because the relationship had already been established with the human rights lawyer. So they knew who we were and they knew generally that we were trying to help them in a way. We couldn't have gone there without her.
Certainly.
And just walked in.
Yeah, right. So I know one of the frustrations that a lot of scientists doing more applied work face is they find an answer, they think they know the answer of how things should be, but they're not able to change things. So is this something where you feel like if you get certain results, you will actually be able to change the policies or change what's going on there?
No. And that's something that we actually said at the beginning of every day to the people we were meeting with was we're just these little scientists and we can't change the policy of the mine and we can't change the policy of the government, but we're going to provide you with information that maybe will help. I mean, that's the idea. It's really an information gathering mission at this point.
Well, I think this is important too. When you think about having a big impact on people, it's sort of the potential impact. And then you have to sort of dance around all the red tape and the roadblocks that come up to stand in your way. So,
yeah. Well, and that doesn't even include the scientific uncertainty of what we're finding. That's assuming we find some concrete answer. But, we may be afraid to make a conclusion because we don't have enough data or, something was off when we collected it.
Results, yeah.
Yeah, so it gets doubly complicated.
Certainly. Well, Tess, wonderful to hear about this recent trip that you've taken and a project that you're working on that seems to be just really fascinating, understanding the environmental impacts of this gold mine down there. So we've talked about some of the challenges that you're potentially facing in your own line of research. And I think it's so important to talk about some of these challenges that scientists face, some of the failures that they experience, because it makes you look like real people. It shows people the human side of science and also it gives hope to people who are looking up at faculty members and thinking, I could never be that because I'm in this XYZ situation. So can you tell us about one of your own challenges or a failure that you've had and how you got through it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we fail all the time.
Right.
So if anyone's listening then is worried because they're experiencing failure also, then they're like halfway on the way to being a scientist. So,
right.
And there's actually, I think it was a paper in Nature, which is like one of the, most prestigious science journals, where the woman recommended that people make a CV or a resume of all their failures.
I like that idea. I'm going to have to try it.
Yeah, because then people can look at it and say, oh, that person made it to that position or appears so successful, but they actually have had all these failures. And so therefore my failures shouldn't end my career or,
Definitely. I think that's a fantastic idea. So share with us one of the things you would put on your own failure CV.
Oh gosh. Well, so one type of failure that really gets me and is not something I'm very good at getting over right now is paper rejections and proposal rejections. So we're constantly putting together these ideas and spending a lot of time writing them and making them look nice. And then we send them out and they go to other scientists for review. And more often than not, they come back with negative or
strongly worded comments.
Sometimes a little snarky comments. And it's really hard not to take that personally.
So what do you do on a day when you maybe have gotten some comments back? They're not so favorable. How do you get past that right now?
Well, so first I consider quitting and then
step one.
and then I usually decide that that's not a reasonable response. And you just have to sort of move the blame away from yourself. You kind of have to look at their comments objectively and say, well, how can I make this better? Oh, actually, they were right about those things. And then where can I submit this somewhere else? You have to find another destination for your paper or proposal.
Another venue for criticisms, right?
Yeah, exactly. But eventually, if it's good, if the root of it is good, then it eventually will be successful.
Tess, I think this is such an important pain point for scientists to talk about. I mean, you are, like you said, devoting so much time to putting together these manuscripts, putting together these grant proposals, and they are almost always rejected or not accepted on the first try, at least.
Oh, yeah.
And then, several tries later, you might get lucky, but it's one of those things where you're constantly refining your ideas. You're constantly refining your presentation of the ideas. And I think it is an important component of the scientific process. So wonderful to hear about your experiences and glad to hear you didn't follow through with step one of quitting. So Tess, we don't just want to talk about the tough times. Can you tell us next about one of your success stories? And this can be a big success or even just a small victory along the way.
Yeah, I think getting this job was kind of a very unexpected success. Penn State's geoscience department is stellar. It's full of these very successful scientists, scientists who appear like they've never had a grant turned down. And
they're untouchable. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And to have them, I guess, see some potential in the work that I do was really, I don't know. I was surprised, but I think we're our harshest critic. So
what was it like when you got that notification that you were being given an offer?
Well, I didn't really believe it at first. And then it's kind of started to hit me, the responsibility and the expectations that would come along with a job like this. And it all became pretty overwhelming pretty quickly. But it's an incredible place to be. There are so many opportunities for people who want to work on water-related projects. And I've got more to do than I can wrap my head around. So it's a good thing, though.
Certainly. So do you have any words of wisdom out there for people who might have been in the position that you were in 6-8 months ago, whenever it was before you got the job? Any words of wisdom or advice for people who are currently looking for academic faculty positions like the one you have now?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. I would say just be really honest and yourself when you interview. And I was interviewing for this job where they don't have a lot of applied scientists. And I kind of made it clear that that was a focus for me and that I wasn't going to change my research direction to fit into the rest of the department, and sort of thought that would be a deal breaker at the end of the day, but it turned out it wasn't. And I think the fact that I was honest and was able to talk about my interests and research passion in a true way, that must have rang clearer to them than somebody trying to fit in or say what they think they wanted them to hear. So yeah, just talk about the research that you love. And if it's a good fit, you'll get it. And if you don't get it, don't blame yourself, because it's not necessarily because your science isn't good. It's because it just wasn't a good fit.
I think that's great advice for a lot of people out there who might be applying to faculty positions or applying to many, many faculty positions and getting rejections. Is oftentimes it's the fit of the department. Is your research what they are looking for to add to their current team? So really good point there, Tess. And great to hear about your success story. Congratulations. It's very exciting to get that faculty position. And I know once you get it, like you said, it became very overwhelming very quickly. There's a lot of work to do, a lot of learning to do, and a lot of things to get off the ground. So are there things that you're doing right now that are really helping you with that process?
I don't know.
What keeps you sane?
Oh, nothing, because I'm not. Well, one thing is I have really great grad students. I came in and lucked out. I have a PhD student who is top notch, and she's really organized and really motivated. And I think, she kind of keeps me sane in a way, or at least keeps me from being more insane if she was not as good.
Gotcha.
But no, I haven't figured that out yet. That's what I need to do.
Well, I love the candid response. And I think it is something where it takes a little while to really hit your stride, get everything sorted out, get everything moving. And it's great to hear that you have a graduate student out in the lab who can help you get things moving. So wonderful to hear about these early stages in your career. And I think a lot of people point to this early stage as one of the most challenging in their career, just trying to figure everything out as you're going, sort of running along and learning it along the way. So I know it's a very busy time for you, Tess, and you probably haven't had a ton of time to sit back, relax, and read. But I've gotten so many fantastic book recommendations from people I've had on the show. So I am going to trouble you for one today. Can you tell myself and our listeners about a book that you've read and just really enjoyed that you think we should check out?
Sure. I guess right now I'm reading The Poisonwood Bible, Barbara Kingsolver. And I think it's one of those books that I was probably supposed to read in high school. And
I still haven't read it myself. I'll admit that.
Okay. So I'm not the only one. So it's great. And I think, just coming back from a developing country. And so it's all about this family that moves to the Congo and their experiences there and kind of the different perspectives from 4 children and the parents. And, I think it's important to read about how other people live in the world. And this is a very different way of living than anywhere in the US or in the developed world. So I've found it really enjoyable, entertaining, I think, because a lot of it I can, relate to some of the experiences that they're having. And, it's sad and funny and all the emotions come out like any good book.
Gotcha. Well, wonderful recommendation, Tess. I will put that out on our website for our listeners to check out. And Tess, you mentioned you do quite a bit of traveling. We've talked about your trip to Papua New Guinea. Can you think back on all the places that you've been for science? And I'm going to make you pick a favorite today. Can you tell us where you were and why it was so memorable?
Whoa, a favorite? One
favorite. One and favorite.
Gosh. I mean, I think I would go with Papua New Guinea. So I've been, all over South America and India, and I've traveled for conferences and things elsewhere in the world. But I think this PNG trip was memorable in a way because it was so different and yet also wonderful, and the science worked out. So having fieldwork be successful is not really something you can count on. And so when it works out and the trip is generally enjoyable and you feel like you laugh and smile a lot and learn something, then it's generally a success all around.
So I know fieldwork is full of potential calamities, and oftentimes calamities arise. Can you tell us about if there were any hiccups in your trip to Papua New Guinea, or if there were any things that you were sort of anticipating but didn't happen?
Yeah. So, well, we were told about just some sort of security issues and some potential violence issues in some of the areas that we were in that did not turn out to be problems, which was very good.
A relief, certainly.
Yeah. I kind of went into the trip thinking I might have all my equipment stolen, and that's okay. So,
gotcha. Can't get attached to it.
Yeah. So nothing was stolen, which was great. And that was a challenge. A challenge I didn't expect was how difficult it was to get around the sites and just in terms of hiking on these, cliffs and this incredible mud, just getting from village to village. And we were able to sort of set up the logistics while we were there, which was really good.
Gotcha. So are you a rock climber, hiker kind of person yourself, or was this a sort of uncomfortable new experience?
I'm going to say no.
Gotcha. I'm not an outdoors person either. It's okay.
I'm terrified of heights. So some of that was a little uncomfortable, but I'm not very skilled. I fell down a lot in the mud. So.
Well, it just makes it more fun than you're, getting your mud bath, and it's probably good for your skin or something, right?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, Tess, wonderful to hear about your experience in Papua New Guinea, and exciting to hear that you've had an opportunity to travel to a variety of different places over the course of your career as well. And you mentioned you'd been to India. What was the occasion for that trip?
So that was during my postdoc at Columbia, and I was there doing some work in Punjab, which is the sort of most northwestern state, borders Pakistan. And I was there meeting with some folks at the Punjab Agricultural University and trying to collect some field data from different farms. It's a very agricultural region. And so we were doing some agricultural water management projects.
Very cool. Well, again, great to hear that you've had so many opportunities to travel. And I think this is something that a lot of people outside of the science careers don't realize, that you get these opportunities either for fieldwork, for conferences, things like that. So we like to share people's fabulous experience, and I get to travel vicariously through them. So,
oh, good.
Well, Tess, we've talked about some of the work you've done and some of the different places you worked over the years. And I know every lab kind of develops its own personality, and there's a lot of quirky traditions that spring up, and even just some hilarious memories that you can look back and laugh about. And we like to talk about them on our show because I think a lot of people perceive scientists to be very serious, and we take our research very seriously, but we're people too, and we like to have fun. So can you share with us today one of your own experiences of a quirky tradition or just a hilarious science or field memory?
I don't know. Most of my graduate school work was done independently. I had some undergrads helping me, and I would occasionally work with other grad students, but they were all my own projects. And so I didn't really get involved in a lab culture. It is funny at times. I mean, we've had like various wild animals come across field areas, like wild turkeys, and that's always entertaining. I tried to catch a fish once with my bare hands while we were wading in the stream.
Were you successful?
No. Goodness, no.
Can you tell us, Tess, is there a particular tradition that you would like to see develop in your lab, or that you're planning to create?
I haven't thought about that. We're going to a hockey game tonight with my lab group.
Awesome.
I've never even seen a hockey game. I
Really?
mean, I've seen Miracle, that movie, Miracle, which I love. I love sports movies, but I've never actually been to a hockey game. So I'm looking forward to that. And then, maybe I'll ask them about traditions that we should start.
Well, you can listen to our previous episodes if you're looking for any ideas. There's some good ones out there.
Okay, I will.
But Tess, that is fantastic to hear that your lab group gets together outside of the lab and spends some time together and has fun. Because I think it is really important for having a positive work environment where people are looking forward to coming if they have that sort of sense of camaraderie or community. And I think it's fun to chat with your lab group, not only about these traditions that you're hoping to instill in your laboratory, but also about some of these big questions that they might have on your mind, some of these big what if questions. And I love taking time to ponder them with different scientists. And if nothing was a restriction, if things like funding and staff and technology and feasibility, not an issue, what is one research question that you have burning in your mind that you are dying to know the answer to?
I would say figuring out how much available water is underground. So how much water in the aquifers can we actually get out? And that seems like sort of an easy question, but it's actually rather difficult to answer and really, really important for resource planning and, figuring out if we keep farming in this area and pumping water, how much longer into the future are we going to be able to do that? Is it 2 decades? Is it 10 decades? Like, what's the time frame? And so in order to answer that time frame question, we have to know how much water is there. And if I could have some method for calculating the total amount of available water, so like water we can actually pull out in a reasonable way from the ground, that's what I would want to know.
So is it sort of a technology and feasibility restriction right now?
It's partly technology, but I think it's mostly just going to come down to a better understanding of the physics, and the way it's going to be solved is a better understanding of the physics.
A fantastic question for us to think about, and definitely important implications for the whole world. And I know we chatted in the beginning about some of the recognition that you've gotten for the work that you've done. And we mentioned that you were on recently Startalk Radio on an episode that hasn't yet been aired. And without giving away any of the content, can you tell us a little bit about that experience? I mean, you got to meet Jason Sudeikis, Eugene Meerman. Are they as funny in person as they are with their sort of personas?
Yeah, they're hilarious.
So what was it like?
It was really fun, and also meeting Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Of course.
Amazing.
Did you get to shake his hand?
Yeah, he hugged me.
Oh, wow.
It was, yeah.
What was going through your mind while hugging Neil deGrasse Tyson?
I don't know, the whole universe.
Yeah. The whole cosmos even. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, it was good, but they're all just regular people. And like Neil gave me some sort of like academic advice, and, Eugene Meerman and Jason Sudeikis were just kind of like regular guys. They're funny, obviously, but if you were just hanging out with some of your friends, I think you would think it was similar. So.
Gotcha. So how did this opportunity arise, if I may ask?
Yeah. Neil deGrasse Tyson sent me an email out of the blue asking if I wanted to talk and maybe see if, I would be a good fit for doing this live Startalk taping. And I think I was coming back from the airport from somewhere when I got the email, and I was like, look, I got a fake email from Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
And I showed it to my boyfriend, and he was like, I don't know. And he's a computer science guy. And so he looked whatever behind the email and was like, no, that's real. That's a real email.
Oh, wow.
And so I, replied, and he wrote back again. And then we talked on the phone, and it was really him. And I have no idea how it happened. I assume some, maybe some connection through Columbia, but.
Well, that is phenomenal. So can you share with us the advice that Neil shared you, or is it private?
No, yeah. The advice, it had to do with answering questions. And I think part of it was for the podcast itself, but then he also said, this is also really good just in general. And what he said was, when somebody asks you a question that you don't know the answer to, you can say, I don't know, but always follow it with another piece of information that you're giving to them. So, for example, he said, if I were to ask you, how fast does the Ganges River flow? And I would say, I have no idea because I don't know anything about the Ganges River, but most rivers flow at about a meter per second. So providing another piece of information that person wouldn't necessarily know that's related is sort of the key to answering questions that you don't know.
Certainly. Well, listeners out there, if you have upcoming qualifying exams, defense dissertations, take note. This is helpful here.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, wonderful advice from Neil. And I know researchers get actually quite a bit of advice over the course of their careers. Can you share with us, Tess, what you would consider the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
One thing that I've been told to do every now and then, and that when I do it, I love it, is not having my email open all day, which I know seems like such a mundane piece of advice and kind of a boring thing, but just disconnecting myself from email so that I can actually do work and science is like a breath of fresh air whenever I do it. But I always feel like I can't do it because I need to be responding to people immediately. And of course, I can never do that anyway. But not keeping your email on is the advice that I would say is the best and makes the most immediate difference.
Well, that is outstanding advice. And I know as someone who is addicted to email myself, this is a problem that I am trying to work with because, I have Outlook for work and you get those little pop-ups. Every time you get an email, whatever I'm doing, it's sidelined completely. What is this email? I must check. So I definitely think that's good advice for being productive, for making good use of your time, is to check your email in batches, not always have it open. So great advice for our listeners out there. Now, Tess, is there any other last piece of advice or maybe just a few last words of wisdom that you would like to pass on?
So I think I would just tie it back to the failure things and not being afraid to try stuff that you don't know if it'll work. I mean, that's sort of the key to science, I think, is, going in with a good plan and a good idea of what you think might happen, but not necessarily fully developed always, because you don't have time to do that. And you just have to sort of take a leap, and you may waste some time and you will waste some time and you're going to fail a lot, but that's sort of the necessary steps. Otherwise, everything you do will be kind of boring, I think.
Great advice, Tess. Yeah. I like that. I mean, I think it's so important not to fear failure, but so many of us have been trained to fear failure. Our whole academic careers are based on not failing, right? So I think it is important in science to encourage people to be creative, to take leaps, to work on at least a couple projects that are maybe a little bit riskier, that might fail, but are so interesting to them.
Yeah.
So great advice. Can you tell our listeners how they can reach out to learn a little bit more about you or the things you're working on?
Sure. I have a website, which is just my name, tessrusso.com. And you can also email me just at russo, russo, @psu.edu.
Fantastic. Well, listeners, definitely check out the research Tess is doing. And Tess, thank you so much for chatting with us today and sharing a piece of your story.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Certainly. And thank you, listeners out there. Join us again next time for another episode of People Behind the Science. Your voyage to the lives of today's exceptional scientists has just begun. You can find everything we talked about today, including our guests' favorite books, biographies, photos, and more, when you visit us at www.peoplebehindthescience.com. I look forward to seeing you next time on People Behind the Science.